3 months ago, I thought I had everything a man could ask for: a beautiful family, a hilltop mansion in Los Angeles, and a life built from 2 decades of hard work. Today, I'm sitting in the dim light of my late mother's basement in Indiana, holding a letter that rewrote my entire existence. It's strange how fast your life can turn into someone else's story. Before I tell you my complete story, subscribe and comment where you're watching from. I'd love to know how far this story travels. My name's Evan Marshall, and I'm 47 years old. Until not long ago, I was a commercial insurance adjuster in Pasadena, one of those guys who spent his life cleaning up other people's disasters. I used to think irony was just a word, until I became one myself. I had what people called the dream. My wife, Leah, and I had been together for 18 years, high school sweethearts who believed love could outlast anything. We had 2 kids, Logan, 16, and Maya, 14, both brilliant in their own ways. Logan was the athlete, broad-shouldered and unstoppable on the basketball court. Maya was the artist, always lost in sketchbooks and colors. We lived in a glass and stone home overlooking the city, the kind you see in glossy magazines. Every night, I'd stand on the balcony and watch the lights below, thinking, this is it. This is what success feels like. I thought I knew who I was. Evan Marshall, son of Evelyn Marshall, a quiet librarian who raised me alone after my father died in a car crash when I was 12. I grew up in a small town in Indiana, where summers smelled like cut grass and winters meant patching leaks in our old furnace. My mom worked double shifts at the county library to make sure I never went hungry. She was the kind of woman who'd fix a broken chair instead of buying a new one. Simple, practical, steady. When Leah and I married, Mom was our biggest supporter. She helped with the down payment on our first home, visited every Christmas, and spoiled the grandkids in ways that embarrassed her thrifty soul. For 47 years, that was my story, until it wasn't. It started small. A cold shoulder here, a late-night phone call there. Leah would say she was showing homes to clients, but her perfume lingered too long, her smile never reached her eyes. One evening, while she scrolled through her phone, she turned the screen away when I walked in. When I asked, she laughed it off. "You're being paranoid, Evan." But the warmth that once filled our house turned brittle. Logan stopped asking to play catch, Maya's drawings grew darker. I told myself it was stress. Maybe work, maybe age. Maybe me. Then one morning, everything cracked. A courier handed me a manila envelope as I left for work. Inside, divorce papers. Not just that, accusations. Fraud. Gambling addiction. Hidden debts. Pages of fake transactions from casinos I'd never stepped foot in. Leah's lawyer claimed I'd been embezzling client funds, that I was financially unstable, emotionally volatile, unfit to parent. It felt like I'd been punched through the chest. None of it was true. I hadn't so much as bought a lottery ticket in years. But when I saw the evidence, signed receipts, false statements, witness claims, I realized someone had built an entire world of lies around me. The courtroom was sterile and silent, except for the sound of my life collapsing. Leah sat across from me, perfectly composed, eyes colder than I'd ever seen them. Her attorney tore me apart piece by piece, presenting fabricated bank records, casino receipts, even testimonies from supposed colleagues claiming they'd seen me gamble on my phone. When the judge ruled, it felt like the air left my lungs. Leah got everything: the $4.2 million house, full custody, even half my business assets. I was left with a small savings account and the shell of a man I used to be. But it wasn't the ruling that broke me, it was what Leah said afterward. She waited until the cameras were off, then leaned close and whispered, "You'll never see Logan and Maya again. I'm moving to Seattle next month. You don't have the money to fight me anymore." That was the moment I knew, this wasn't just heartbreak. It was a setup. Within weeks, my career was gone. My insurance license was revoked under financial misconduct. I couldn't get work, couldn't fight the court's decision, couldn't even reach my kids. So I did the only thing left. I went home, to the one place that still had my name on it. It took 3 days to drive from California back to Indiana. 3 long days watching my reflection in gas station windows, wondering when I'd started looking like my father, tired, haunted, and alone. By the time I reached the old white brick house on Sycamore Lane, it looked frozen in time. Mom's wind chime still hung by the porch, her porch swing still creaked in the wind. The same house she'd bought after Dad died, 35 years ago, using a mix of life insurance money and hope. I sat in the car for nearly an hour before going inside. The air smelled of lavender soap and old paper. Her glasses were still folded beside her favorite chair. Her last book, The Silent Archivist, was still open on the coffee table, mid-sentence. That house felt like stepping back into childhood, the one place that never judged me. But standing there, surrounded by her books and quiet dignity, I realized how far I'd fallen. 3 months earlier, I'd had a city skyline view, now I was staring at cracked paint and dusty picture frames. Still, that small house was mine, the one thing Leah's lawyers couldn't touch. I promised myself I'd fix it, sell it, and use every penny to fight for my kids. I didn't know then that the fight waiting for me wasn't in a courtroom, it was buried deep beneath that very house. The days that followed were a blur of exhaustion and silence. I'd wake up on Mom's old couch, the morning sun bleeding through lace curtains, and feel the heaviness settle in before I even moved. My life had collapsed so fast, it didn't feel real. Some mornings I'd still half expect to hear Leah humming in the kitchen, or Logan's sneakers squeaking down the hallway. But all I heard was the old refrigerator humming and the tick of the grandfather clock Mom had wound every Sunday. Depression doesn't arrive with thunder, it seeps in. It was the small things that broke me, seeing my kids' faces in photos, hearing their laughter in my memory, wondering what Leah was telling them. Did they think I abandoned them? Did they believe I'd gambled our future away? I couldn't bear the thought. For weeks, I didn't leave the house. I didn't shave. I barely ate. I drifted through the same 4 rooms, trapped between the echoes of my mother's presence and the static of my own failures. The walls felt like they were closing in, whispering that maybe Leah had been right, maybe I was worthless. But Mom had never raised me to quit. She used to say, "You fix what breaks, you don't throw it away." One morning, I heard that voice in my head so clearly it startled me. And for the first time in months, I got up with a purpose. If I was going to fight for my kids, I needed money. The house was all I had left, and it wasn't in great shape. Mom had done her best to keep it together, but after she passed, time had worn down everything. The cabinets were chipped, the paint was peeling, and the furnace made a sound that reminded me of someone sighing in their sleep. So I started fixing things. At first, it was just busy work, sanding floors, repainting walls, recaulking the bathroom. But the more I worked, the more I felt like myself again. Each nail I hammered felt like a heartbeat returning. Each wall I painted was a small rebellion against the lies that had torn my life apart. Working in that house was like talking to my mother again, wordless, patient, full of quiet lessons. Then came the basement. Mom had used it mostly for storage, but walking down those creaking steps felt like entering another lifetime. The smell of dust, cardboard, and old paint hit me all at once. Boxes were stacked everywhere, Christmas decorations, photo albums, even my 3rd-grade science fair project she'd somehow kept. I remember sitting on the cold concrete floor, opening one of her boxes marked Evan, Childhood. Inside were little things only a mother would save, my first report card, my crayon drawings, an old baseball glove. I smiled for the first time in weeks. But as I worked my way through the clutter, I noticed something odd about the far corner of the room, the area around the old furnace. The concrete looked wrong. Different texture, faint scuff marks that didn't match the rest of the floor. Dust patterns were uneven, like something heavy had been moved recently. That was impossible. Mom had been gone 2 years, and before that, she could barely lift a box of books. I knelt down, tracing the faint drag marks across the concrete. My heartbeat quickened. There were fresh scratches, long, shallow grooves where metal had scraped stone. I followed them to the furnace and realized something unthinkable: it had been moved. That furnace weighed hundreds of pounds. There was no way she'd done that alone. I should have stopped there. Should have told myself it was nothing. But grief and curiosity have a strange partnership, they feed each other until you can't tell which one's driving. I spent the rest of the afternoon figuring out how to shift that thing. I disconnected the gas line, hands shaking the whole time, slid a dolly underneath, and used a crowbar for leverage. Inch by inch, the furnace groaned and rolled forward, scraping against the floor until finally, a narrow gap appeared behind it. That's when I saw it. A small steel safe embedded into the concrete wall, painted the same dull gray as the basement. No logo, no markings, just a 3-digit combination dial. I stared at it, heart pounding, dust clinging to my shirt. My mother had hidden something here. But what? I sat on the floor for a while, thinking. Then it hit me, her favorite ritual. Every year, on my birthday, March 19th, she'd call me at exactly 6:42 a.m., the time I was born. Never missed it. She said it was the minute the world gave her purpose. 6:42. I leaned forward, hands trembling, and began turning the dial. Right to 06. Left to 42. Right again to 19. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then, with a heavy metallic click, the door swung open. Inside, my mother's secret life was waiting. Bundles of cash. Dozens of envelopes. Stacks of old photographs tied with ribbon. And beneath them all, a letter. My name was written across the front in her looping handwriting. I tore it open, the paper shaking in my hands. It started with words that made my stomach drop. My dearest Evan, if you're reading this, then it means they've finally found you, and I'm no longer here to protect you. I froze. The words blurred for a second as my mind struggled to process them. Found me? Who was they? I kept reading. You've lived a life built on a version of the truth I created to keep you safe. Your father, Thomas Marshall, didn't die in a car accident. He died during an operation that never officially existed. He was working for a division of the U.S. intelligence community that was dissolved before you were even born. When he was killed, I was forced to disappear, not because I wanted to, but because the people involved weren't supposed to know he had a family. My pulse was hammering in my ears. I reread the lines, barely breathing. They called it Project Helios, a covert energy defense program that went wrong. Your father wasn't just a field analyst, he was the man who discovered something they wanted buried. And after his death, I became a liability. So the agency created a new identity for me and for you. They told me if I ever revealed the truth, both of us would be in danger. My hands were slick with sweat. My mother, the quiet librarian who spent her life in the county library, had been living under an assumed identity for decades. I looked at the stacks of cash again, the passports with her photo but different names, Elena Ward, Catherine Doyle, Ruth Harris. All with different states, different birth dates, all perfectly real. And at the bottom of the box was a sealed envelope marked in red ink, for Evan, when it's safe. That's when I realized, Mom hadn't just been a mother trying to make ends meet. She'd been a survivor of something enormous, something buried by people who didn't want it uncovered. I unfolded the rest of the letter, my eyes skimming lines that would change everything I thought I knew about her, and about myself. The letter trembled in my hands as I read, the air in that basement growing colder with every sentence. Evan, if you found this, it means the ones who silenced your father have resurfaced. 3 years ago, I began hearing whispers that people connected to Project Helios were searching again, not for me, but for you. I hired private investigators to watch over you in California, to make sure you were safe. But what they discovered terrified me. My throat tightened. My eyes scanned the next lines, barely able to comprehend what I was seeing. The woman you married, Leah, she didn't know at first, but she was drawn into their reach. The company she worked for, Horizon Real Estate, is owned through shell accounts tied to the same corporate network that financed Helios decades ago. They found you through her, Evan. And when they couldn't get to you directly, they destroyed your life from the inside out. For a moment, I couldn't move. My fingers went numb. Leah. The love of my life. My high school sweetheart. The woman who once stayed up all night with me studying for finals, who held my hand during my mother's funeral. She hadn't just betrayed me, she'd been used to betray me. I swallowed hard and read on. They orchestrated everything, the false gambling records, the fabricated debts, the witnesses. They wanted to destroy your reputation, revoke your license, take your children, and force you back here, to this house. They knew this was the last trace of me, and they believed something inside it could expose them. They wanted you to lead them to it. The words felt like ice in my veins. I looked around the basement, suddenly aware of every shadow, every creak in the walls. It hit me then, everything that had happened wasn't random. The loss of my home. The collapse of my marriage. The court's precision. It was all too clean. Too efficient. I looked back at the letter. The money you found is what remains of the settlement the government paid me when they erased my identity. But that was only part of it. The documents in this safe, they're evidence, Evan. Proof that Helios never ended. That it changed names and faces and buried its secrets beneath corporations and contracts. I kept them hidden because your father died trying to reveal the truth. You deserve to know what he died for. I ran a hand through my hair, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it echo against the concrete. Mom, my sweet, gentle mother, had been living under the constant weight of a lie. And now I understood why she'd always been so cautious. Why she double-locked every door. Why she made me promise never to talk about where we lived. The letter wasn't done. There's a man who can help you. His name is Agent Mason Crow, though he won't appear under that name. He was your father's partner and one of the few who knew what really happened. You'll find his contact details in the red envelope at the bottom of the safe. Tell him this phrase, the sun never sets on Helios. He'll understand. I stared at the envelope, its red seal cracked from time but still intact. I didn't open it yet. My hands were shaking too badly. The next paragraph felt like my mother was sitting right there beside me, her voice trembling through the ink. Evan, I wanted to give you a normal life, one without the shadows that haunted ours. I never wanted you to know this pain. But I always feared this day would come. If you're reading this, it means the past found you again. You are stronger than you know. You have your father's conviction and my stubbornness, a dangerous combination for people like them. Don't run. Don't hide. Finish what we couldn't. By the time I reached her final words, my chest was tight, my vision blurred. Use the money to rebuild your life, not escape it. Get your children back. Protect them from the same world that took your father. And remember, sometimes the worst thing that happens to you leads you to the truth that saves you. I set the letter down, tears streaking the dust on my face. I don't remember how long I sat there, surrounded by the quiet hum of the furnace and the soft tick of the water pipes. For 47 years, I thought my mother was a simple librarian who loved books and tea and crossword puzzles. But she had been a soldier in her own war, fighting not with guns, but with silence and secrets. As I gathered the contents of the safe, the cash, the fake IDs, the old photos, I noticed something else taped to the back wall, a small flash drive, covered in dust. My mother's handwriting was scrawled on a strip of masking tape across it, Crow. That name again. I took the drive upstairs, plugging it into the old desktop Mom had kept in the study. The screen flickered to life with a low hum. Inside were dozens of encrypted files, one labeled Project_Helios. But the last file, dated only 6 months ago, stopped my breath cold. It was titled Leah_Marshall. I clicked it open. It was a folder of surveillance photos, Leah meeting with a man I didn't recognize. Each image timestamped. Each location tied to companies I'd never heard of, Horizon Energy Holdings, Neuralis Systems, Dendrix Defense Group. My mother had known. She'd been watching everything unfold even as she was dying. The letter's closing words echoed in my head, "They found you." That night, I barely slept. Every sound outside felt amplified, tires on wet pavement, a dog barking, wind brushing the window screens. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was already out there, waiting. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I opened the red envelope. Inside was a phone number written in pencil and a phrase. "Ask for Mason." I stared at it for a long time, feeling the weight of everything my mother had carried for decades pressing down on me. Then I dialed. It rang once. Twice. Then a voice answered, calm, measured, and unsettlingly familiar. "Evan Marshall," the man said. "It's been a long time coming." We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Mom used to serve pie and coffee on Sundays. Now, it was covered with files, cash bundles, and fake IDs. Crow's eyes scanned everything with quiet precision. "Your mother kept everything," he murmured. "God bless her." I studied him. "You knew her?" He nodded slowly. "We worked together. She wasn't just your father's wife, she was his data analyst on Project Helios. She understood that program better than anyone. When Thomas discovered what Helios was really doing, she was the one who convinced him to blow the whistle." "What were they doing?" I asked. Crow's jaw tightened. Helios started as a renewable energy defense initiative, a way to harness solar radiation to power global surveillance systems. But it was twisted into something else. They used the tech for off-the-books weapons testing. Civilian casualties were written off as containment errors. Your father uncovered proof and was preparing to leak it. "And they killed him for it," I said quietly. Crow nodded once. "Car bomb. December 1990. They made it look like an accident. Your mother and you were supposed to be in that car. She got spooked at the last second, said she'd forgotten your school project at home. That instinct saved both your lives." I felt a hollow ache in my chest. All my life, I'd pictured my father's death as tragic but simple, a crash, bad weather, wrong place, wrong time. But this was a deliberate execution. "She raised you under a false name," Crow said softly. "And we helped her disappear. She kept her head down, lived quietly, trusted no one. Until the noise started again." "What noise?" "The same corporations that bankrolled Helios back then, they've restructured, rebranded, and buried their sins under energy tech and AI contracts. Horizon Holdings, Dendrix, even Neuralis, all of them tied to the same money trail. And somehow, they found you." My stomach turned. "Through Leah." Crow gave a grim nod. "They used her. Fed her false documents. Told her you were hiding financial crimes, that you'd ruined her future and jeopardized your kids' safety. She believed them because they had proof. Forged, of course, but convincing. They broke her trust to break you." I sat back, numb. "She thought she was protecting our children." "Yes. And they exploited that. Classic psychological dismantling, isolate the target, discredit him, drain his resources, then wait for him to retreat to the one place he feels safe. That's when they move in to clean up the evidence." He gestured toward the safe. "That safe wasn't just a hiding spot, it was bait. They wanted you to open it. They believed Evelyn had left data inside that could expose them. They were counting on you to lead them right to it." A chill ran through me. "So they're still out there?" Crow's expression hardened. "Oh, they never stopped. They've just gotten smarter." He reached into his coat pocket and slid a small black drive across the table. "This is everything your mother left for me before she died. She mailed it to a Dropbox in D.C. I've been sitting on it for 2 years, waiting for you to call. Inside are the last unredacted files from Helios, including your father's recordings. It's proof that everything they built was designed for control, not progress. I turned the drive over in my hands. It was unmarked, cold, heavier than it should have been. What do you want me to do with it? Crow's eyes met mine. Finish what they started. Help me bring this into the light. But you need to understand, once you do, there's no going back. You'll be a target, same as your father. I exhaled slowly. I've already lost everything once. Crow nodded. Then you're ready. We spent the next 6 hours combing through documents, scanning files, cross-referencing my mother's data with his encrypted archives. It was like assembling a puzzle whose picture no one wanted to see. By 2 a.m., the pieces fit together, the forged gambling records, the fake court filings, the companies that, coincidentally, handled the financial audits during my divorce. All of it was connected. They hadn't just tried to ruin me. They tried to erase me. Crow leaned back, exhausted but resolute. The DOJ has been trying to reopen the Helios case for years, but every time they get close, files vanish, witnesses disappear. Your mother kept backups. You're the missing link, Evan. You can tie it all together. The realization hit me like thunder. My mother hadn't just hidden money or documents, she'd hidden a lifeline. She trusted me to find it when the time came. When Crow left that night, the house felt different. The silence wasn't empty anymore, it felt alive, watchful. I sat by the window until dawn, watching the first light touch the sycamores outside. Somewhere out there, my kids were waking up, getting ready for school, maybe wondering if their dad still thought about them. He did. Every second. And for the first time in a long while, I had something I hadn't felt since the day my life fell apart: purpose. The days that followed blurred together in a haze of adrenaline and quiet fear. Crow had told me to stay put, but I couldn't sit still. Every creak of the floorboards felt like footsteps, every passing car like a shadow circling back. I spent most of my nights at the kitchen table, surrounded by files, photographs, and the sound of my mother's voice echoing in my head. You fix what breaks. You don't run from it. So I fixed it. Crow and I started working in secret. He'd send me encrypted links, safe numbers, old government correspondence that proved Helios never truly ended. I became obsessed, reading, cross-checking, connecting every dot. The truth wasn't just ugly. It was radioactive. Helios had evolved into something called Project Vectra, a private sector intelligence network using AI and solar relay systems to intercept global communications. It wasn't about national defense anymore. It was about profit, leverage, and control. Billions had been funneled into shell companies, fronted by executives who never existed. Leah's real estate firm, Horizon, was one of them. The irony was bitter. My wife had unknowingly become part of the same machine that had killed my father. Then came the morning that changed everything. Crow called at 6:15 a.m. It's happening, he said. The DOJ's moving forward with the unsealed documents. They want you to testify. Evelyn's files are the missing proof. I didn't hesitate. I'll do it. He was quiet for a moment. You understand, once this goes public, there's no undoing it. They'll try to discredit you again. Maybe worse. I've already lived through the worst, I said. Now I get to decide how the story ends. That day, I drove to Chicago, where the Department of Justice had set up a private session for the federal hearing. Walking into that building felt like walking into a storm I'd been running from all my life. The marble floors, the echo of footsteps, the hush of government corridors, everything felt heavy, sacred, final. Crow was waiting by the conference room door. You ready? No, I said, but let's do it anyway. Inside, there were 5 people, 2 federal attorneys, a woman from Internal Affairs, and 2 agents I didn't recognize. They asked me to recount everything, from the divorce to the letter, to my mother's safe and Crow's files. It took 6 hours. When it was over, the lead attorney, a gray-haired man named Ellison, leaned back and said quietly, Mr. Marshall, your mother's evidence is a breakthrough. We've been trying to track these networks for years. Her courage, and yours, will help us shut them down for good. For a long moment, I couldn't speak. I just nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. A week later, the raids began. Multiple states. Dozens of arrests. Corporate boardrooms turned into crime scenes. The names on Mom's old files matched almost perfectly with the executives arrested under Vectra's shadow operations. The news broke nationwide, private intelligence firm exposed in decades-long covert surveillance scandal. Crow called me that night. It's done, he said simply. Your father's story, your mother's silence, it all mattered. I didn't say anything for a while. Just stared out the window, watching the Indiana night flicker with fireflies. You think she knew it would end this way? She always did, Crow said softly. She was waiting for you to finish it. After that, the government restored my credentials, cleared my name, and reopened the custody hearing. Leah had been arrested initially for her part in the forged documents, but when the truth came out, when she saw the files, the evidence of how she'd been used, her world crumbled too. She wrote to me from custody, "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. I thought I was saving our kids." When she was released a month later, we met at a neutral park in Illinois. She looked older, smaller somehow, guilt carved into her face. "I'm so sorry, Evan," she whispered. "They showed me everything, your supposed debts, the recordings. I thought I was protecting them." "I know," I said quietly. "They built the lie for both of us." We sat in silence for a long time, watching Logan toss a basketball to Maya by the swings. When they finally ran up to hug me, it felt like my lungs filled for the first time in years. "Dad," Logan said softly. "Mom told us everything." I looked at Leah, who nodded through tears. That moment didn't erase what we'd lost, but it started to rebuild what mattered. It took months to untangle the mess legally, but eventually, everything fell into place. My license was reinstated. The fabricated debts erased. The state issued an official apology, though no words could ever balance what had been taken. I sold the old house on Sycamore Lane after finishing the renovations. The money helped fund college accounts for both kids. We moved to a smaller home just outside Madison, Wisconsin, simple, peaceful, the kind of place where silence felt healing, not haunting. Leah and I didn't get back together. Too much had been broken, and some things don't fit the same way twice. But we found peace, not as husband and wife, but as parents who'd survived something extraordinary. Logan made the college basketball team. Maya got into an art program in Chicago. She paints now, bright colors, open skies, no more dark corners. Sometimes I catch her smiling while she works, and it reminds me of my mother's calm, quiet strength behind the eyes. Every morning, I still think about Mom. About how she lived in silence so I could live in truth. She saved me twice, once when I was 12, and again when I was 47. Last week, Crow called. The DOJ wants me to testify at the public hearing, the final trial to close Project Vectra for good. I'll be there, I told him. This time, I'm not running. As I hung up, I found myself standing at the edge of my backyard, sunlight spilling through the trees, the air still and golden. Mom used to say, sometimes the worst thing that happens to you leads you right where you were meant to be. I finally understand what she meant. Because losing everything wasn't the end of my story. It was the moment my real life began. If this story touched you in any way, share it with someone who might need to hear it. And remember, the people who love us most don't always fight their battles in the open. Sometimes, they protect us quietly, even from beyond the grave. Like and subscribe for more stories. Thank you for watching.